Stand up for me. I need to ask you a few questions.
About what? I'm sitting here waiting for my car.
We had a report about someone matching your description hanging around this area acting suspicious. Stand up.
Matching my description? What does that even mean, officer?
Don't play games with me. Stand up and keep your hands where I can see them.
Assistant U.S. Attorney Marcus Webb, knowing these indications.
Last warning. On your feet. Now.
All right. Just so you know, you're talking to a federal prosecutor, and this entire...
I don't care who you claim to be. Turn around.
You probably should, because this is about to end your career.
24 police officers. That is how many Marcus Webb had prosecuted in 7 years with the DOJ's Civil Rights Division. 21 convictions, careers dismantled, pensions revoked, prison sentences delivered in federal courtrooms where Webb's preparation was so thorough and his cross-examinations so precise that opposing counsel had stopped requesting continuances and started requesting settlements before the trial date arrived. He had not earned a nickname in law enforcement circles. He had earned something more specific than a nickname, a reputation. The kind that traveled ahead of him into rooms before he entered them, the kind that made experienced officers go quiet when his name came up in precinct briefings. On a Tuesday afternoon in March 2026, Officer Abel Fickler, Unit 809, 9 weeks on the force, walked into the Premier Auto Group customer lounge at 142214 with his body camera active and his gloved hand already raised. The timestamp would later read 142222 when the hand moved toward the black man in the black t-shirt sitting in the gray lounge chair. The man was broad-shouldered, close-cropped beard, gold wedding band catching the afternoon light at his left wrist, his expression carrying the specific, controlled disbelief of someone who has just heard something he recognizes completely and cannot believe is happening to him in the same moment. Behind him, through the large service bay window, a red car sat visibly on the lift in Bay 2, the car Fickler had not asked about, the verification he had not performed, the 60-second confirmation that would have ended the encounter before the gloved hand reached 1422 on the body camera timestamp. Fickler did not look at the window. He raised the gloved hand instead. And the man who had spent 7 years building 24 cases watched number 25 begin from 12 inches away on a running body camera in a customer lounge designed for exactly the kind of person he had always been. Premier Auto Group occupied a prime position in Houston's Galleria district, floor-to-ceiling windows facing the service lane, a showroom that moved inventory starting at 6 figures, and a customer lounge designed to communicate in its every material choice that the people waiting in it had arrived. Gray modern furniture, soft lighting, the particular quiet of a space that had been built for a specific clientele, executives, physicians, attorneys, the kind of people who scheduled routine maintenance with the same efficiency they applied to everything else in their professional lives. Marcus Webb had been bringing his car here for 2 years, since he purchased the vehicle to mark a promotion he had worked toward for the better part of a decade. The car was not indulgent by the standards of the dealership's average customer. By the standards of 7 years of assistant U.S. attorney salary, it was the one considered purchase he had allowed himself after building a record that most prosecutors twice his age would have been satisfied to retire on. 7 years as assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Texas, lead prosecutor on United States v. Denton, the case that dismantled a narcotics unit supervisor's operation across 37 cases, produced evidence fabrication convictions across 6 officers, and sent the unit's commanding officer to federal prison for 8 years. 24 officers prosecuted, 21 convictions, $6 million in victim settlements secured. Georgetown law, 4 years as a public defender before the crossing, because he had watched the system fail his clients from the inside long enough to understand that the most consequential place to be was on the other side of it, building the cases that actually held people accountable. Recently elevated to Deputy Chief of the Civil Rights Division, the reputation that preceded him into rooms had not been constructed through volume or aggression. It had been constructed through preparation so thorough that it left opposing counsel with nothing to dispute and juries with nothing to doubt. They did not call him the cop hunter. They called him the last person you wanted to see across a courtroom. Some said it with frustration. The honest ones said it with a specific, reluctant respect that is the most credible form of acknowledgement in any professional environment. On a Tuesday afternoon in March 2026, Officer Abel Fickler, Unit 809, 9 weeks on the force, walked into the Premier Auto Group customer lounge at 14:22:14 with his body camera active and his gloved hand already raised. The timestamp would later read 14:22:22 when the hand moved toward the black man in the black t-shirt sitting in the gray lounge chair. The man was broad-shouldered, close-cropped beard, gold wedding band catching the afternoon light at his left wrist, his expression carrying the specific, controlled disbelief of someone who has just heard something he recognizes completely and cannot believe is happening to him in the same moment. Behind him, through the large service bay window, a red car sat visibly on the lift in Bay 2, the car Fickler had not asked about, the verification he had not performed, the 60-second confirmation that would have ended the encounter before the gloved hand reached 14:22 on the body camera timestamp. Fickler did not look at the window. He raised the gloved hand instead, and the man who had spent 7 years building 24 cases watched number 25 begin from 12 inches away on a running body camera in a customer lounge designed for exactly the kind of person he had always been. Marcus Webb had not planned to become the person officers feared. He had planned to become the person their victims could rely on. 4 years as a public defender in Houston's Harris County had built that intention into something more specific than idealism. It had built it into a working knowledge of exactly where the system protected the people who held power within it and exactly where it left the people who didn't, holding nothing. He had watched officers whose conduct was documented, time-stamped, and corroborated walk out of internal reviews with their badges intact and their patterns uninterrupted. He had watched his clients absorb consequences that the evidence didn't support because nobody on the institutional side had been sufficiently motivated to look at the evidence carefully. After 4 years, he had made a decision that his colleagues in the public defender's office had described as a betrayal, and that he had understood, from the moment he made it, as the most logical response to what 4 years had taught him. The most consequential place to be was inside the system that was doing the protecting, building the cases that held the protected accountable. 7 years of that decision had produced the Denton case, 24 prosecutions, 21 convictions, and a reputation in Texas law enforcement circles that his supervisors described as unparalleled, and that opposing counsel described in language considerably less institutional. The car was the one thing he had allowed himself to enjoy without qualification. 2 years at Premier Auto Group, same service appointment every 12,000 miles, same chair in the customer lounge, the one positioned directly in front of the service bay window where he could see his car on the lift in Bay 2 and review case files on his phone while he waited. The lessons 7 years had built into his professional routine was simple and consistent. Documentation was everything. He carried it into every courtroom. He carried it into every deposition. He was about to carry it into a customer lounge at 14:22 on a Tuesday in March. The man who made the call had been at the dealership for 11 minutes. He had arrived for a test drive, a white male in his mid-50s, the specific physical confidence of someone who had moved through every space he had ever entered without once being asked to justify the movement. He had spoken to the sales associate at the front desk, declined the offered coffee, and was making his way toward the showroom floor when he passed the entrance to the customer lounge and looked in. What he saw was Marcus Webb, broad-shouldered, black t-shirt, case files on his phone, sitting in the gray lounge chair in front of the service bay window with the particular settled stillness of someone who had been in that chair before and expected to be in it again. The man looked at him the way people look at things that do not fit the picture they have already assembled of a space. He did not look long. He looked long enough. Then he walked to the service manager's desk and said quietly, but not quietly enough, that there was a man in the lounge who did not look like he belonged there and that it made him uncomfortable. The service manager's name was Paul Garrett. He was 38 years old and managed the Premier Auto Group's service department for 4 years without a single discrimination complaint, a record that the subsequent investigation would examine with the specific attention that records receive when the event that follows them requires an explanation. Garrett looked toward the lounge. He saw what the customer had seen. He did not see what the customer had not seen: the service appointment on his own system, Bay 2, scheduled and active, the car on the lift visible through the window behind Webb's chair. He retreated to his back office at 14:09. He picked up the phone at 14:11. The dispatcher who took the call asked, in the standard format that dispatch used for suspicious person reports, what the individual was doing that had prompted the concern. Garrett's answer took 4 words: "He's just sitting there." Those 4 words were entered into evidence as Exhibit 1 in the federal trial. The prosecution did not need to contextualize them. They did not need to explain them or frame them or provide a legal analysis of what they revealed about the basis for the call that sent Abel Fickler through the dealership door 11 minutes later. They simply played the recording, let the 4 words occupy the courtroom in the silence that followed, and moved to Exhibit 2. Abel Fickler had worked in private security for 3 years before applying to the department. The company was a commercial property management firm in the Houston metro area, office buildings, retail complexes, the kind of assignments that required a uniform and a presence and not much else. He had been good at the presence. The uniform had given him something that the 3 years preceding it had not, and he had worn it with the specific enthusiasm of someone who had been waiting for the authority before they had developed the judgment to carry it. 2 incidents in 3 years. The first involved a black tenant in a midtown office building who had been asked on 3 separate occasions by Fickler to produce a key card he had already produced. The tenant had filed a formal complaint. The company had investigated. The second involved a Hispanic family in a retail car garage. Fickler had called building security on them while they were loading groceries into their car in a space registered to their unit. The second complaint produced the termination. The letter used the phrase "racially motivated conduct" twice in 4 paragraphs and recommended against future employment in any security or enforcement capacity. The letter existed. The department's background check process required employment verification going back 5 years. The hiring supervisor who processed Fickler's application had not completed the verification step. Fickler had not disclosed the termination. Unit 809 had been issued 9 weeks later. 9 weeks had produced 14 stops. 11 involved black or Hispanic individuals. 0 arrests, 0 citations. A text message thread between Fickler and a colleague, retrieved during the investigation, confirmed in his own words that the pattern was not incidental. He had described his patrol area as productive specifically because of its demographic composition and the ease of generating contact statistics within it. His body camera activated at 14:22:14 as he crossed the Premier Auto Group threshold. 8 seconds later, at 14:22:22, the gloved hand was already raised. The conclusion had been formed before he read the dispatch description, before he entered the building, possibly before he left the cruiser. The observable facts in the room, the service bay window, the car on the lift, the technician visible in the background, the entire verification chain available from where Fickler was standing without requiring either of them to move more than their eyes. Webb looked up from his phone. His expression carried the specific, controlled quality of someone who has just heard something they recognize completely. The first demand of an encounter whose architecture they have studied from the other side for 7 years. He did not stand. He asked, in the measured tone of someone who had opened depositions with more complex questions, whether there was a problem. Fickler said he had received a report of suspicious activity. Webb asked what activity. Fickler said his presence in the area. Webb gestured toward the service bay window behind him, the red car visible on the lift in Bay 2, exactly where he had left it, exactly where the service appointment confirmed it should be, and said he was a customer waiting for his vehicle. Fickler did not look at the window. He repeated the command to stand. Webb set his phone on the chair beside him. He said, with the patient precision of someone who had conducted hundreds of depositions and understood that precision was the only thing that mattered in a recorded exchange, that he was an assistant United States attorney for the Southern District of Texas and that he would like to know the legal basis for the request before complying with it. Fickler laughed. The body camera audio captured it at 14:23:41. A full, dismissive sound that the prosecution would later play in the federal courtroom without amplification, without framing, without any instruction to the jury about how to receive it. They played it once, they let it occupy the room, then they moved to the next exhibit. Webb offered his credentials. Fickler refused to examine them. Webb pointed again at the service bay window, the car on the lift, the technician visible in the background, the entire verification chain available from where Fickler was standing without requiring either of them to move more than their eyes. Fickler did not look at the window. Not at 14:23, not at 14:24, not once in the 11 minutes the body camera recorded. The window was in the background of the footage for every one of those 11 minutes, present, lit, unambiguous, and the prosecution's closing argument would return to it 4 times, each time asking the jury the same question without ever quite finishing the sentence, because the footage finished it more effectively than any words could. The hand moved at 14:26:08. Not suddenly, with the deliberate, committed motion of someone who has exhausted the verbal phase of an encounter and is transitioning to the physical one with the specific certainty of a person who has never paid a consequence that required them to reconsider the transition. The gloved fingers extended first, then the palm, then the closing motion toward Webb's upper arm, the body camera recording every millimeter of it from 12 inches away in the specific resolution that close-range body camera footage produces when the subject fills the frame. Webb did not move, not backward, not forward, not the instinctive weight shift that bodies produce when unexpected physical contact arrives. He stayed completely, deliberately still, the stillness of someone who had decided before Fickler crossed the threshold at 14:22:14 that the most consequential contribution he could make to the next hour of his professional life was a body that gave the record nothing to misrepresent. 7 years of civil rights prosecution had built that discipline into him the way repetition builds anything, until it was no longer a decision requiring effort, but simply the way he occupied a room when the room required it. The body camera captured his face at the moment of contact, slightly upward, the measured, unbroken attention of a man looking at something he is cataloging rather than reacting to. His left hand rested at his side, the gold wedding band catching the afternoon light in the specific way that the body camera's lens rendered gold, warm, clear, the detail of a life that extended beyond the 24 prosecutions into something that Fickler had not considered and the footage had preserved without being asked to. The verification chain was present in the background of every frame of the physical contact sequence. The car, the lift, the technician, the window, all of it recorded simultaneously with the gloved hand and the stillness and the gold wedding band and the expression of a man who understood that what was happening to him at 14:26:08 on a Tuesday afternoon in March was the 25th case. Not a violation he was experiencing, but a case he was building, from the chair where it started, with the only tool that had ever mattered in any of the 24 that preceded it. The evidence they could not deny was recording itself from 12 inches away. Webb stayed still and let it. The footage was on Webb's attorney's desk within 24 hours. Not because it was leaked, because Webb had filed the formal preservation request through the U.S. Attorney's Office before he left the dealership, standing in the Premier Auto Group parking lot at 15:04, while his car was still being lowered from the lift in Bay 2, using the specific procedural knowledge of someone who had filed 24 preservation requests in 7 years and knew that the 48 hours following an incident were the window in which institutional memory became most susceptible to administrative revision. The body camera footage was preserved and transmitted to the DOJ's Civil Rights Division the same afternoon. The dealership security system footage followed by morning. The prior security termination records arrived in 72 hours. The investigator assigned to the case had submitted the employment verification request to Fickler's former employer on the first day, the verification step that the department's hiring supervisor had not completed before clearing Fickler's application. The former employer's HR department responded with the complete file. The termination letter was 4 paragraphs. It used the phrase racially motivated conduct twice. It recommended against future employment in any security or enforcement capacity in language specific enough to have required a supervisor's legal review before it was sent. It was entered into evidence as Exhibit 3. The prosecution would later note in their trial brief that Exhibit 3 had been available to the department's hiring process for the entire 9 weeks Fickler had been on the force. It had simply never been requested. The 9-week stop pattern was assembled from Fickler's own patrol records, public documents, accessible through a standard records request, requiring no investigation to obtain, and approximately 40 minutes to read in sequence. 14 stops, 11 involving Black or Hispanic individuals, 0 arrests, 0 citations. The text messages required a warrant and produced something the patrol records had only implied, confirmation in Fickler's own words that the pattern was deliberate. He had described his patrol area as productive in terms that the prosecution would read into the trial record on the second day without editorial comment and allow the jury to sit with in the silence that followed. The hiring supervisor was identified in the departmental review that opened 4 weeks after the incident. The finding was narrow and specific. The employment verification step had not been completed, the termination records had not been obtained, and the application had been cleared on the basis of an incomplete background check that met the form requirements without meeting the substantive ones. The supervisor was placed on administrative leave pending further review. 3 colleagues who had processed similar applications using the same abbreviated verification method were identified in the same review. The department's hiring protocol was suspended pending a consent decree negotiation that the city attorney's office initiated before the trial date had been set, a sequencing that communicated to anyone paying attention that the city had reviewed the evidence and made a decision about the direction the litigation was heading before the grand jury had finished its work. The grand jury returned indictments 6 weeks after the Tuesday afternoon in March. Civil rights violations under color of law, assault on a federal officer, false imprisonment. The indictments named Fickler on all 3 counts. The departmental review findings were attached as supplementary material, not charges, but context, the kind of institutional record that sentencing judges read carefully, and that the consent decree negotiations were already incorporating into their terms before the ink on the indictments had dried. The lesson the assembled record delivered in 6 weeks was the same one the termination letter had been available to deliver for 9, that a document sitting in a file at a former employer is only useful to the people who receive the consequences of not reading it. The department had paid that cost. Fickler was about to pay it in a different currency entirely. The federal trial was held in the Eastern District of Louisiana. The venue transfer had been requested by Webb's team and granted without objection. The Southern District of Texas had too much of Webb's professional history embedded in its institutional relationships for any proceeding involving him to be conducted without the appearance of conflict, regardless of the actual conduct of the trial. New Orleans, a federal courtroom with no prior connection to either party, a jury pool with no prior exposure to Webb's reputation or Fickler's department. 4 days. The prosecution played the body camera footage first, all 11 minutes of it, unedited, in sequence, without narration or contextual framing. The timestamp appeared at the bottom of the screen as it played, 14:22:14, Fickler crossing the threshold, 14:22:22, the gloved hand raised, 14:23:41, the laugh, captured in audio so clean that the courtroom sound system required no adjustment to render every frequency of it at natural volume. Then the service bay window, present in the background from the 3rd minute forward, Webb's red car on the lift in Bay 2, the technician moving through the service routine, the entire verification chain visible and active for the remaining 8 minutes of footage. The prosecution did not point at the window during the screening. They let it appear in the background of every frame and trusted the jury to notice what Fickler had not noticed once in 11 minutes. The 911 call was played next. 4 words, "He's just sitting there." The prosecution paused the recording after those 4 words and told the jury it was the most honest description of the crime entered into evidence, not as a call describing suspicious behavior, but as a call describing the absence of it. A man, a chair, a customer lounge. 4 words that had sent a uniformed officer through a dealership door with a conclusion already formed and a gloved hand already rising. Webb testified on the 3rd day. He wore the same black t-shirt and dark pants he had been wearing on the Tuesday in March, a deliberate choice that his attorney had suggested and that he had accepted because the visual argument it made required no legal framing. He was the same person who had been sitting in that chair. The clothes had not changed. The credentials had not changed. The car had been on the lift in the window behind him. Nothing about the observable facts of the afternoon had been ambiguous to anyone willing to observe them. He testified for 4 hours. His account of the 11 minutes was precise, sequential, and delivered in the same measured tone that had made him effective in depositions for 7 years. The tone that communicated, without performing it, that every word was being offered as evidence rather than argument. When the defense attorney asked him on cross-examination whether Fickler had acted in good faith, Webb was quiet for a moment. Then he said that good faith required looking at the available evidence. The car was in the window for 11 minutes. Fickler had not looked at it once. He left the jury to determine what that constituted. The defense's strategy was the only one available to it. Good faith response to a legitimate call, no way to know, a misunderstanding that had escalated beyond anyone's intention. The prosecution's closing rebuttal addressed it in 2 sentences. The car was on the lift in the window behind Marcus Webb for the entire 11 minutes of the encounter. Officer Fickler never looked at it once. Everything else, the laugh, the refusal to verify credentials, the gloved hand, the prior termination letter, the 9-week stop pattern, the text messages, and the termination letter had established as a sequence rather than a collection of isolated events. They deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. enhanced sentencing for targeting a federal official, and for the documented prior pattern of civil rights violations that the 9-week stop record, the text messages, and the termination letter had established as a sequence rather than a collection of isolated events. 10 years in federal prison, no early release provision in the enhancement structure. Abel Fickler was 31 years old when the sentence was delivered. The judge read it without pause, noting the termination letter, the incomplete background check, the 9 weeks of documented pattern, and the 11 minutes of body camera footage in which a verification that would have ended the encounter in 60 seconds was available in the background of every frame and was never once attempted. The hearing supervisor was removed from his position before the sentencing date. The department's background check protocol was overhauled by the consent decree's first provision: mandatory employment verification completed and documented before any application could be cleared, with a supervisory sign-off requirement that created personal accountability for the completion of the step rather than the form. 3 other applications cleared through the same abbreviated process were reviewed retroactively. 2 produced findings that required further action.
The city settled with Webb for $6 million 4 months after the verdict. He retained $4 million for personal security, family trusts, and the financial infrastructure that a federal prosecutor who had just become nationally identified as a civil rights victim required to continue doing the work safely. $2 million established the Webb Civil Rights Access Fund, providing free legal representation to victims of racial profiling who lacked the resources to pursue the cases that the system had been designed, in its more honest moments, to provide for them. The fund's first year of operation handled 31 cases. Webb noted the number in the fund's annual report without comment. The 5-year DOJ consent decree was signed 6 weeks after the settlement. Its provisions were specific, enforceable, and monitored by an independent federal overseer with quarterly reporting requirements. The department's compliance record in the first year was reviewed and found adequate. The second year's review was scheduled. The overseer's office remained open. Garrett was terminated by Premier Auto Group before the trial began. The dealership settled the civil discrimination complaint without litigation and implemented comprehensive staff training as part of the settlement terms. The male customer who had made the original complaint to Garrett faced a separate civil action that settled out of court. His name was not in the public record. The 4 words of his complaint were: "The customer lounge at Premier Auto Group is still there. New management, new policies. The gray modern furniture has been replaced, but the service bay window remains. The same large frame, the same view of the bays, the same afternoon light falling through it in the same direction. Webb still takes his car there. Same service appointment schedule. Same chair, the one positioned in front of the service bay window, where he can see the lift and review case files on his phone while he waits. He sits facing the window deliberately. Not because he needs the reminder, because the reminder is accurate. The verification was always available. The car was always on the lift. The window was always there. The only thing that changed on a Tuesday afternoon in March 2026 was that the person who refused to use the verification available to him in 60 seconds is now 10 years into learning what 60 seconds costs when you decide it isn't worth spending." Webb referenced the Tuesday afternoon for the first time in a training session for incoming civil rights prosecutors 8 months after the verdict. He wore the black t-shirt. He told them about the 11 minutes. He told them about the window. He told them about the gloved hand and the laugh and the gold wedding band catching the light in the body camera footage and the stillness that had been the most consequential decision he had made in the entire encounter. "Document everything," he said. "Stay completely still. Your best weapon is never resistance. It is the record they build for you while they believe they are building it for themselves." The 25th case is on his record, not as a prosecution, as the thing that made every subsequent prosecution more precise, more urgent, and more specifically informed by the knowledge of what it feels like to be on the other side of the evidence that matters.
If this story held you from the first body camera timestamp to the last sentence Webb delivered in that training room, if it made you think about the window that was visible for 11 minutes and never looked at, about the termination letter that was available for 9 weeks and never retrieved, and about what changes when the person sitting in the chair has spent 7 years learning exactly what evidence matters, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like Marcus Webb's exist because a federal prosecutor stayed completely still for 11 minutes and let a body camera do the work that 7 years had prepared him to recognize. We tell them because the people who don't have 7 years of civil rights prosecution experience and a DOJ preservation procedure memorized deserve the same outcome when a gloved hand rises in a room they have every right to occupy. If you want more stories about racial profiling, institutional failure, and the moments when the record finally caught up with the pattern, hit that like button right now, subscribe to this channel, and tap that notification bell so you never miss a video. We post stories every week exposing racial profiling, police misconduct, and the people who made the system answer for the documents it chose not to read. Every story is documented, every pattern is visible, and the window is always there, whether anyone looks at it or not.